Samech mi Golgotha Hamech Echad mi Kol Umaya Ribon Olam Be'almaya Anu Malka Melech Malachaya Migdashech Etuv Ulekodesh Kodshin Atadi Beyechdun Ruchi Venafshin V'zamerun Lach Shirin Berachim B'Yerushalem Shufraya Ya Ribon Olam Be'almaya Azumaka Melech Malachaya Azumaka Melech Malachaya. That was like Shabbos. It was great. Thank you. Good. And then I forgot to say, like, one of the most important things is that the first stanza becomes the refrain that accompanies every subsequent stanza, which means miracle is accompanying nature. Miracle is accompanying history. Miracle is accompanying Am Yisrael in exile. Miracle is that which ultimately brings us. In other words, his miraculous light, his Ein Sof light, is what brings everything about. It's there threaded throughout the entire song. So, great. Thank you. So what I want to do today, we don't have a book for everybody. It's called Kiddushat Shabbat Kodesh, the holiness of Shabbat. And so again, like I said at the conference yesterday, whoever doesn't have one, whoever wants one can have one. Again, minimum donation just to cover the cost, a little $5 or thing. And it's a very power-packed little thing. It's really, it needs to be learned. It's a learning safer. It's not just a reading safer. But if you have patience and you really read it once and you go back over it twice and you see that there's stuff in here that's like eternal. This is like stuff to live with for the rest of your life. This is what Shabbos is. This is a taste of what Shabbos is. So I've been teaching some classes in Yerushalayim about davening on Shabbos and then the meals of Shabbos. Every first class is always the davening and the second class is the meal. Because the meal has a lot of stuff in it that most people don't know about. So let me just guide you through the book if I can do it without getting too involved. Page 1 to 5. If you can sit next to somebody. In the meantime, I would ask you to make sure that everybody has some visual.
Which one? Which book?
It's the holiness of Shabbat. They're all out already. So we have to make it. I promise you, I'll send you a PDF file. You just send me an email, and it's yours.
What's your email?
At the end, okay?
Okay.
So, page 1 to 5 is an essay based on the idea that the name of the game of Shabbat and of everything ultimately is consciousness. I'll begin by pointing out that the Talmud and the Rambam, based on the Talmud, says that this is an incredible idea that what's prohibited on Shabbat is what's called melechet machshevet, a thoughtful or an intentional deed. That means if you're looking at two trees and you see a plum, you see a plum and a fig, you see a pear and an apple. You say, wow, I really want that plum up there. And you pick the one next to it. Or the same with the apple. That's not a Torah prohibition. You've not transgressed a Torah because you didn't get what you wanted. You didn't do what you were thinking. The same thing as if you wanted to pick the plum and the fig or the apple and the pear and you picked them in opposite order that you wanted. It's very, it's crazy. What's the difference? You got what you wanted, right? In the first case, you didn't get what you wanted. But now you got what you wanted, but just in the wrong order. No. The Torah will not make you... that's not called a Torah prohibition. Of course, the rabbis come in and say, careful, don't do it. Don't do it. It's asur. It's prohibited, midrabanan, to save you from coming anywhere near a Torah prohibition. But the idea is that the rabbis never cross the line and try and make what they did sound like... they never try and erase the distinction between rabbinical and Torah. D'oraita. The Rabbanan, D'oraita. They're really careful. So, what's going on here? And it all goes back to the fact that Hashem created the world with intention, with conscious intent, with conscious intent. That His deeds, the deeds of the Infinite One, bless you, the deeds of the Infinite One were manifestations of a thought. And so, you okay? So if you have the page in front of you, halfway down it says, let's try to understand this. This extreme emphasis on conscious intention in connection with Shabbat comes from the fact that every act that Hashem did in creating the world was purposeful. Thus, in order to emulate Hashem, we too are to infuse our actions with consciousness, intention, and purpose. And so what I try to explain here is that most of Shabbat laws are in the negative. Don't do this, because you'll get it. Don't do this, don't do that. Everybody knows, don't do this on Shabbat. But really the hidden message is, if the power of thought is so powerful in the negative, guess what? It's even more powerful in the positive. That if you intend to do something, that it really is important. If you intend to eat with consciousness, if you chew your food a little bit more on Shabbat, if you say your bracha a little bit slower, if you really say, Hashem, I just don't want to do things like I've been doing them. I want to grow to the next level. I want to really learn how to be with you. Even in the small physical acts that I do, I want spirituality, consciousness to penetrate, to permeate my being. And I have to be the one who does it. And how do I do it? With thought. Wow. So the relationship between thought and deed, or even thought and speech sometimes. Thought is behind speech, and thought is behind action. So just to skip for a minute, because I want to go back, but on page of the book, page 27, is the prayer for lighting Nerot Shabbat. It's the prayer itself that a woman says, who's a mother, a wife, a mother, and I guess a man says, who's single, or unless you rely on your mother. Well, that's the prayer. On page 28 is a text, the beginning of a text from Reb Chaim of Chernovitz, where he just says what we just tried to explain. Siduro Shel Shabbat, Rabbi Chaim of Chernovitz, lighting Nerot Shabbat. It's in the Hebrew and the English. Behold, it is known from the Zohar that the system of the mitzvot is based on the combination of action and speech. That is the only way we can cause the maximum arousal from above is through the combination of our dibur, our speech, and our maaseh, our deed, both of which must follow after the kavanah, intention of the heart. So I say in small print, again, the way we bring about a maximum arousal from above, of Hashem's light and blessing, is through our arousal from below, when we are about to perform a mitzvah. This arousal from below itself must be expressed in the conscious combination of our speech and our deed. In addition, both of these must be expressions of the intention of our heart. We thus have a minimum of 3 elements or components that are necessary for performing any mitzvah fully. Deed, which is elevated by speech, and finally, intention, which directs and oversees both. Then as it goes, he does a beautiful text here. I thought it would be meaningful for people to know how awesome it is, the lighting of candles on Erev Shabbat. Until he quotes a beautiful Zohar. And really all these are just, when I see a text like this and I say, I got to translate this. This is like, people have to know about this. That's what inspires me. If it changed my life, maybe it can change somebody else's, or it can inspire others. So,
where's Rabbi Chaim of Chernowitz from?
Chernowitz.
The
The Chernowitzer Rebbe. Shlomo used to talk about it,
Really?
but I never knew until I saw the book. So you hear stories, but then you see the man wrote an awesome book called Siduro Shel Shabbat, which is the deepest teachings about Shabbat. It's a wonderful sefer. I've never finished it, but I can tell you the little I've learned of it has been very amazing. There's him, there's the Bnei Yissaschar, there's a whole bunch of amazing things that we have. Hashem, please give us the time and the ability to see these things. Shlomo used to carry on very little clothing, I think, maybe some underwear, but everything was books. It was very, that's all he did. He lived these things. And it looked like he was like just he was just talking. But if you really listen closely, he was talking from stories that he had read, that he had heard, Torahs that he had heard, Torahs that he knew. He was a profound Talmid Chacham.
Wow.
What's coming out now in all of the books that are coming out, in fact, there's a whole how shall I call it, an initiative in Yerushalayim, spearheaded by 2 or 3 people who are bringing together all of the things that he said, and then that were taped,
pictures,
and putting them together, indexing them, and making them available in one big search engine. I don't know exactly how it will come out, but it's a very powerful idea of the teachings of somebody whose teachings were just as profound as some of the greatest teachers of our generation and even of past generations.
Can we be part of that too? Like, can we contribute tapes or things?
I have an email.
Yeah,
I'll get you the email.
Yeah, for the initiative.
So what pages 2 and 3 go into is based on the fact that if you see on page 2, the last paragraph before the bold writing, hidden behind this negative emphasis, in other words, the negative emphasis of Shabbat laws, is a powerful teaching about the positive power of consciousness and conscious intention. And this is where Sod, the Kabbalah, the soul of the Torah, comes in. Just as a king builds a protective fence around his palace, Halacha is a protective fence around Kabbalah, the soul of the Torah. Halacha warns you that you'd better not consciously intend to do anything wrong. But this is a preparation for the real meal, learning how to consciously intend to do positive acts with the full power of consciousness, of focus and consciousness. For as we're trying to show, if there were one word that truly encapsulates the essence of Shabbat, this is it. Dot, Bina, Chochmah, whatever you want, but in English, consciousness. Focused consciousness. And so I bring this teaching here that there's a whole concept of receiving the Neshama Yetera. And you receive it in stages. We receive the Nefesh Yetera, the Ruach Yetera, and the Neshama Yetera on Friday night. And there's another level of it on Shabbos morning. And so that's what these texts bring, straight from the sources.